In this video, I will be doing a brief introduction into our property management software, Rent Manager. As described earlier, Rent Manager is very widely used within the company. We store all of our tenant data, all of our account information, purchase order, prospects. Everything is pretty much done through Rent Manager, so having a very thorough understanding of how to use it and navigate it is going to be very important. Like I said earlier, this is just going to be a brief introduction to the software. So I will show you around the areas where you will be inputting data, reviewing data, and then we'll just get you familiar with the platform. So as soon as you launch it, it's going to take you to this homepage right here where you're going to have a dashboard. So these dashboard tiles are completely customizable. So you can add in recent online applications, you could do tenants that are approaching the end of their lease, security deposit refunds that are due. So that's all very easy to customize, and how you're going to do that is you're going to right click in this gray space, hit Dashboard Designer, and from here these are all of the available tiles that you can choose from. So these are the tiles that I currently have. Pretty easy. I can just get rid of them. I can minimize them, and then if I want to add one, it's as easy as just dragging one and dropping it in. And then we're going to save. So there is my new tile. So up to your right, we have Upload Manager. So Upload Manager is kind of the conduit that allows us to upload files from our computer onto the platform. So Method will set this up for you, and they'll make sure that your Upload Manager is functioning. So you're going to have a folder on your desktop where you're able to drag and drop files into. Once you drag and drop files into that folder, they will appear in your Upload Manager to this right hand side, and from there you're able to upload it to the appropriate tenant or account. If you don't want to see this, you can easily minimize it, or if you exit out of it, you can easily retrieve it by typing in upload right here, and it'll reappear, or you can go to services, and Upload Manager is located right here. So on our left hand side, we have this other sidebar. If you don't want to use it, you can easily collapse it. It'll show you your open windows up on the top, frequently used, time. It has a master search right here, so it can come in handy. Okay, so we are going to review some of the most commonly used areas for a manager. So a lot of these areas are going to be in our rental info. The first section that I think is probably the most important is the tenant section right here. So when you first load tenants, what you guys are going to see is this Manager General page. So this is going to show you the move-in dates, the lease dates. Let's find a better one. And you'll notice at the top, it'll show you a lot of great information. So I'll have the name, property, when the lease started, what type of unit it is. This is a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom, the unit number, and if they have any balances due. So within the tenant section, you're going to have access to the tenants at your property and the tenants at Paradise Cove. Paradise Cove is a training platform, so they aren't real people or real tenants, but tenants that we have made for the purposes of practicing. So feel free to go in Paradise Cove if you want to have practice creating a tenant, entering information, or just performing the whole move-in, move-out process. So another important section within the tenant section is contacts. So anyone who is over 18 living in the unit will be listed on this page. So we can see they have these 2 people living in this unit. We have all of their important information, such as contact information, email addresses, and then the birthday. The birthday is super important because if there is a minor, the minor will also need to be listed with their birthday, and once that minor turns 18, they will need to be formally added to the lease. So that's why it's really important to have birthdays on. Okay, so next we are going to review history and notes. So this is just ongoing records of the tenants living in the unit. So we have a lot of information is going to be in here, and it's going to be in chronological order. So we're going to have everything from the application to all of the leasing documents here. If you post notices to the tenant's unit or just to the property, those notices are going to be listed here as well. And it's just a great record to refer back to, especially if it's a problematic tenant. You can record notes or any notices that you posted to their unit, or any complaints. It's just going to be an ongoing record for you. Next, we have recurring charges. So this tenant is on a month-to-month because they have the month-to-month premium along with their rent. So accounting is going to enter these for you. Transactions page, it's going to show you the ongoing rent payment transactions. So you can see rent was posted with the premium and it was paid. So this tenant is completely up to date on their balances, which is awesome. So the renewal letter, you're going to come here if your tenant wants to renew their lease. You're going to fill out the boxes, and we're going to go over some of the kind of detailed processes towards the end of the training. This is just going to be a general overview of Rent Manager. Same with your move out. Once your tenant wants to move out, you're going to come here and fill out some of these areas to generate some of the documentation. So offer to rent and lease to. So these have some pretty important areas to fill out when generating the leasing documentation. So we will go over what to fill out and where those boxes actually lead to within the documentation. And that is a general overview for the tenant section. So next, let's go over to the prospects. So a prospect is a person who is interested in leasing at the building. They're not a tenant yet, but we store all of our prospects here. So when you create a prospect, you're going to add prospect here. And you're going to fill out all of the required information. So once a prospect is added, we have their information saved. So if they do decide to move forward with a lease, we then move this prospect in, and that creates a change from a prospect to a tenant. So this is kind of the foundation for a lot of the tenant information. So we still have the contacts page. This one doesn't have much detail, so that's why it's important to get as much information from the prospect as possible. Unit preference, any applications can be stored here in the history and notes. This is the prospect section. Next, we can go over to the units. So these are all of our individual units that we manage. So you're going to have a unit page for each unit within your complex. So this is just kind of the general information, the address, the unit type, if there is any square footage. This marketing page is really important because this links up to some really awesome sites such as apartments.com, Trulia, and Zillow. So basically what it does, it takes all of the information that you inputted here and any images that you have inputted here, and it takes that information and it generates a unit ad for this particular unit, and that ad will be posted to all of those websites. And then lastly, we have WSR2 right here. So this information populates into our weekly summary report, and we will go over what that report is and why it's so important. But for now, that is it for the unit section. So properties is another big section. So you will have access to your property page. I wouldn't worry too much about setting it up because it will already be set up by the time you start. One of the most important section within the property page is the IDs and codes. So here it's going to be a lot of information. So information such as the locksbox code, parking spaces, utility information, internet provider codes, tax IDs, all of that stuff will be stored here. I would say it's most important to have that locksbox code that's up to date because that's really important for any maintenance techs that needs to come onto the property to do work. They're going to reference Rent Manager to see the best code to get in. So it's really important that those are up to date. Secondly, in the property tab, WSR is very important. So here you're going to be filling out information that will be pulled to populate the weekly summary report. So moving on, you guys really won't have too much to do in accounting or receivables. However, in payables, it's important that you understand purchase orders. So purchase orders, every time that you need something vendored out, you're going to be receiving a purchase order. So these POs need to be approved by your supervisor. So you can see these are all of the approved POs. We will go through how to create and how to filter, but this is where the purchase orders are. And actually, this is what a purchase order looks like. And it's all generated, approved through Rent Manager. So you can see when the request was made, what it's for, the vendor, the amount. All of that will be in here. Bills is another big area. So once the PO is created and approved, the work will have been performed and then we will have a bill. So all of the invoices actually go through a third-party system. And so once those are paid out, our accountants come in and they import the paid invoice back into here. So every invoice should have a purchase order as well, just to make sure we have that double check. So we also have vendors. So we have our whole list of vendors that you will also have access to. As you can notice, some are red, and that's because either the information is bad or that we just no longer use them anymore. So I would go with any vendor that's in black. And you can see when we used them last by going to the transaction. So this vendor has been used pretty recently. So all of our list of vendors will be here. And then lastly, reports. This is a really big section right here. You are going to be pulling quite a bit of reports, most importantly the weekly summary and the aged receivables with notes. We'll go over how to pull those reports. Okay, so that is a pretty brief introduction into Rent Manager. I hope you got a good feel for the program and just kind of generally know how to navigate and the areas that are going to be most important to you as it pertains to performing your resident manager duties.